This is the Sketchbook Club. We just draw. That's all it is. There's nothing really special or strange or anything about this. Can't. There we go. We draw. We have a good time. If you have any questions, welcome to ask. But for the most part, there'll be whatever's in the background playing, possibly television from my wife. And that's about it. Okay. I get this weird feeling that like you don't really need things to be perfect. You know? Like I used to have this fear when I was making a lot of art that everything had to come out kind of perfectly. As the years have gone by, like a dirty piece of paper is just fine. You just work on what you work on. And you let the inspiration from that kind of hit you, however it hits you. And there's no rules to any of it. You know? The Office is playing in the background. I know that I'm a swallower of words, so I apologize if I'm not really clear in this, like I normally am with painter files. But it kind of plays out how it plays out. For those who ask, my mug broke. That's where it went. When I was really young as an artist, I had a professor who I was studying under. And they used to always tell me that you have to be hardcore, very big word for them, and that you have to, in a lot of ways, kind of just work on textures. The textures have this like really strong, intricate quality to them, and you have to figure out how to like chase that kind of imagery and figure out the connections with the world. And in that, I find myself oftentimes, very often, kind of trying to do something over and over and over again. Trying to see how the repeated images connect me to some type of art history in a way. And not necessarily like pre-existing, but maybe a retelling of something I saw a really long time ago. A friend of mine once referred to it as that I make little tiles, and that's possibly where the image comes from, like tiles like you see in a kitchen or a bathroom. And so, let me give you an idea of what I'm working on. Something kind of like that. It's simple, but they're powerful in the same way. Like as you keep doing something, you kind of establish a history of art. And so, like that, I'll show you my previous page. There's a lot of that. A lot of little kind of bits and pieces making a lot more to what they are. And they don't mean anything. Not to me anyway. But sometimes the continuous making of something kind of develops like a history of artwork and how it kind of it flows in a way, if that makes any sense. I found out, side note, that oat milk was really bad for me, which makes me sad because I really like oat milk, but it hasn't been incredibly great for me, blood sugar wise. So I'm trying to cut it out. Most starch milks I'm not supposed to do really with diabetes, but these are all kind of like lessons you learn as you go through your life. Like I'm in my 40s now as an artist and a painter, and I'm still learning so many things and techniques and all these kind of fun little bits that I otherwise was not connected to. I went to a gallery crawl this week, which was really exciting. I hadn't been to one of those in forever. For those who don't know what a gallery crawl is, it's basically when like an art studio, a collective art studio, starts to have like an open house. So you go and you talk to the artist, and you see their art. It's a chance to like sell wares and whatnot to people and bring people in, and sometimes it like brings artists. Oh hey, how's it going? Um, it helps artists kind of move old artworks. Nararu, peace brother, and it just they're fun though. You get to go and see that. So I went to one in Rockville actually. I'd never been to any type of art, anything in Rockville. I've been hearing about it for a couple decades now. Yeah, technically, a couple decades. And so I had always meant to check them out, but I'd never really gotten an opportunity to because I wasn't really invited specifically. And then I was. An artist who I met recently heard something of me in some way, shape, or form, and asked me to check them out and see how it goes. So I did, and it was just really, really magical. I met these like incredibly smart and funny artists, and we just kind of talked about all the little things. I think what I forgot about studio life outside of my own studio is even when you're in like a big collective of artists, sometimes there's a loneliness that happens. Like you just don't really go forward and like interact with a lot of people. So you spend like a really large point of it just in your studio locked away with headphones on. And it's just kind of interesting how that works. So I know a lot of people would ask, like, why do you then have like a studio, an outside studio outside of your home then, if it works out that way? And the truth is, I don't really think people plan on it being that way. I just think artists have a really bad case of like isolation when we're trying to feel like inspired. So we pull back a little bit so we can fully kind of branch and reach out. And in that, sometimes that's what happens. You end up with these kind of shy kids who, once they get to know you, won't shut up, like type of aspect. And I've always found that to be kind of like a funny little quality that like almost every artist I know has. And there's definitely like a group of artists I know who don't. For whatever reason, like they don't feel that. They don't feel the nervousness, the rush of waiting to like feel really kind of shy. And I wonder sometimes how much of an artist those people really are. Not because they're not shy. It's like, oh, you're fake because you're not shy. It's like, no, it's not that, but it's just kind of interesting how it comes together, how it works. New panel, show you. Got that one. I kind of like these. Like they're just like little, like I said, they're little tiles a lot of times. And they change in shapes, and I change the mediums sometimes, and I go back over them with different things. They're not married to like one singular idea. But the idea behind the practice of doing this is to become stronger at creating art when you want to allow yourself to be creative. And so you just kind of allow that to happen. The funny thing about it is because I've been doing this for so long, I have kind of patterns that I go to when I want to just make something. So I'm not opposed to kind of recurring ideas in my pieces, like coming at a corner or coming at a round shape or finding some type of whatever that like keeps the page from just being blank. I think like the small tiles kind of give the idea of a cure for like artist block in a lot of ways, because you just kind of have to make your art and you already know habits. I suggest like a lot of artists like learn your habits, learn your recurring imagery, learn your all these things, and they will kind of give you so much more flexibility in your creativity. Like you'll find yourself like really grasping how important it is to like when that energy is just built up and you just feel anxious and nervous and etc. You figure out how to still get that out even though you're not making like your magnolicus, magmos. I never quite know how to say that word. Your big moment, your big achievement, your super deep paintings, your all those things. Like it's so easy to like get stuck on the idea that I don't know, I need it to be like really, really, really creative when I make something. And you really don't. Like sometimes you can just make to be making. Like this stuff is throwaway stuff. Like I don't stress out about these. I don't stress out about messing up lines or hand mushes on ink or anything. I just do it. I just go for it and I make things and I fill up these entire sketchbooks over and over and over again because like this is my direction, you know? This is where I want the art to go. So I just go for it. I mean, I know that's a lot to ask of some people because I know they don't like they've got this singularized goal in their mind of like being this like extremely Da Vinci-esque type sketchbooks and stuff like that. But like the truth is like sketchbooks are meant to be kind of ugly. They're meant to be kind of a mess. They're meant to be smudged and not finished and messed over and etc. Like you don't need to always be right with every sketch that you do. I feel like the tiles kind of give me the ability to make sense of it in a way. Like I think I worried before all this that it's like I can't just waste pages on this and all this ink and all these like resources and whatnot. And so on like these one little drawings, and so my brain logic etc kicked in. It was like, okay, cool, well what if you did like 100 maybe did like 100 little ones on a page, and that gave me kind of like the ease of going like I'm not wasting a page on one thing that I don't really care about. Instead instead I'm kind of letting myself trance into the idea of making a bunch of stuff, a trillion little designs, and they're just fun. And I document these and I do stuff like that. So if you ever go to my Patreon, there's hundreds of these little guys everywhere. And I always think that's like really fun to just be able to put that through these things. This is my fun jumpsuit, by the way, for those who don't know, that I make art in when I want to make art. My 747 Club, very rare and exclusive patch. I think only one person has this patch other than me. I made it exclusively for some people, and I only gave out one of them as a birthday present. So if you ever see Jenna, you tell Jenna to show you her cool patch that only her and I have, because it's really, really, really wonderful. And yeah, I do ones like these. Look at that. That's insane. It's madness. But I love that. I love little mad, weird little things. And I work on actual paintings too, on some ideas. But I'm not opposed to just going forward and doing all these little things. You know? Like colors. It's like zesty, I guess is the right word I want to use in this situation. It's probably not the right word, but it's how I feel about it. And I love that. I really do. So 4 more. Sorry, 6 more. Let's just go. Like you see the image that your brain's trying to convince you to make, and then you just start making it. You don't rethink it. You don't go deeper with it. You just make it. These things are deeply kind of grabbing in a lot of ways. And so that's what I'm doing. I think a lot of people I know don't necessarily grasp the idea of, I used to refer to it as like my multi-brain. And since I've been changing my eating habits, I've been eating way less carbs because diabetes. But the problem I ran across is my creativity is based on how my brain gets fed. And your brains crave carbohydrates. So I have to figure out ways to still get them, but not, spike myself. So I'm working on all these ideas and these little things that are meant to give me the ability and the power to kind of be as creative as I want to be, but not endanger myself for the rest of my life, I guess. I don't want to be like footless, but also creative. Like I realized like Chihuly made glass with one eye, but like not my goal. So I mean, if it ever happens, it happens. I'll be upset about it, obviously. You know, I had 2 feet, and then suddenly I don't anymore. But I want to just be able to tap into it, to allow myself to find creativity in the ways that I'm really trying to. I did learn a technique years ago that was, you have to, it's a technique for drawing straight lines for those who are having trouble with it. I met a man a long time ago who made miniatures. He would carve them into like grains of rice sculptures, intricate sculptures. And he had like little glasses and like the microphone, not the microphones, microscopes. And he would have like the lights, and he studied with surgeons how to like hold his breath while he did certain lines so that his heartbeat didn't kind of throw anything off. I've heard that like snipers do that too, like military snipers, but I don't really focus on them. But I always find it interesting, like when I'm working on a line, I'll find myself just kind of stopping my breathing completely for a second to just kind of bring it down and drag it across. So as you notice, as I'm doing these things, I do that. I'm also spinning sometimes with my brush. Like there's a technique that happens where you kind of make things without really, you can make a sharper line via how you hold the brush in the first place. So, kind of my focus sometimes. I change up how everything is going. And I like that. I like that about myself. Then I can do these weird little kind of motions, and they're purposeful. And that's fun to me. You know? It's that weird, exciting little part of my technique and my existence. I do suggest who's ever trying to do that though, make it a point to breathe. Don't just like hold your breath while you do all this the whole time. You will pass out eventually. Don't do it while you're on ladders. Don't do it, because I did murals forever. Don't do it while you're outside doing things where you need your balance. Try and mostly do it when you're in a secure place. And if you were to drop, people would at least notice. I know that feels kind of a heavy thing to throw at someone, but art is sometimes suffering. It just is. Like, it has that quality to it where you go forward, you make an insane amount of art, and then after you've made it, you don't have space for it anymore. And you're like looking and searching and finding all these random individuals who want to get these throwaway pieces that you've never thought about. I think it's probably when I realized I was doing well as an artist, like when people wanted to buy the work that I didn't care about, that I just made to get through the day. Like a sanity thing. And then also to be willing to like accept the factor that like I can make this, and this is not necessarily the definition of the art that I put out into the world. Like, it's really just for me. It's just a practice for me. It doesn't have anything to do with anyone else. And so I just make these. They're full. It's a little darker than the other ones. But I kind of like that, you know? I like sometimes to just, sometimes they're almost all the same. They're not exactly the same, but they're similar in like their qualities, the things that make them probably stand out comparatively might be their unison aspects of all of it. Because I'm like, you're the artist, so the artist is going to have a rhythm, if you will. And sometimes the rhythm is, you know, synchronized. Sometimes it's not at all. But it's interesting to go about all these things and find kind of your narrative in your work. I think that's probably more important than even finding like your style. Finding your narrative is a really big thing because it's super difficult. Like your art is so connected to you that you kind of need to figure out where in all of this you are represented in your own work. I mean, all of it represents you, but all of it doesn't at the same time. Like no one is stopping what you're doing to go like, hey, how'd you come up with that? What's going on? Why would you do that? Etc. Like I know we worry about those things as artists, but it doesn't matter. None of it matters. It only matters if it matters to you. Like we can't let ourselves just kind of be driven mad by the what ifs and the how comes because they're not really that important in the long run. You know? Know what I mean? I think you do. I think you're basically following me. I'm rambling probably a little bit, a lot, but also I think it makes sense. I just like there's so much technique that goes into it that isn't important at the same time. And I love that about it. That's just kind of interesting and weird and fun and funky and all these things. Because I hope by watching me do all this, it eventually kind of inspires you to take chances. Just go for things, you know? Art is a practice that you do, mostly for you. Like it's sweet that other people get into it, but you really do this because you want to do it, because you need to do it. It doesn't have anything to do with anybody else. Check that out. I can't believe we're almost done. Pretty cool. So, coconut oil, black coffee, a little bit of non-sugar creamer. It's a taste. It kind of tastes more like, everything tastes kind of like toasted coconut in a way. And it kind of levels me out. I do like my practices on Sundays, that really kind of, well, every day, that really kind of center and connect me, get me to my flow that I need to really make as much art as I want to make. And so, that's what I'm working on. I heard Sergio Mendes died this week. That's crazy. I love that guy. I really did. He was probably one of my favorite musicians in the whole world for a long portion of my life. And in that, I will miss any and all kind of references to him in my day-to-day stuff. My wife, Alec, and her mother went and saw him live a couple of years ago. My mustache is getting in my mouth. Blah, blah, blah. And I was always kind of jealous about that because it was just so cool. He was such like a inspiration for me growing up. A little, West Indian, Afro-Latino kid with Brazilian roots. Like it was just kind of cool to see him making things, music that like I'd heard my whole life. Growing up with the smell of like frying eggs and then the music kind of blaring as a vacuum and a duster and all these things were coming up. And then the inevitable hearing of, it's time to get up. And so I did. Like, good morning. And like, like, I didn't hear you. Did you speak up? You have to speak up now. And I was like, leave me alone. I just want to sleep. I've been at school all week and I should be sleeping in. And I'm like, nah. No way. And that's just kind of how it was. And Sergio Mendes was there to suffer alongside me, hearing the 47 versions of The Girl from Ipanema and so on and so forth. And I always thought that was just kind of funny and interesting how that worked out. That he was just this really creative and like quite amazing person. And connecting me then to like Celia Cruz and let me see, Don Omar, and then to Daddy Yankee and Calle 13 and all these like great musicians in my life. Julieta Vega. God, such a good time. It was a good time to be alive for me. And I was just working, you know? I was just working on all these kind of artist endeavors at the beginnings of them, the beginning workings of them, where everything I wanted to do was kind of in the vibe of hey, every artistic endeavor is going to be connected somehow to like this thing I'm currently obsessed with that is probably connected to like a newspaper clipping or a magazine or a movie poster or a comic book or whatever. And it made me like really want to do all the things they did, but I didn't know how to do them. And so these were my companions, my traveler companions as I was working on my art and becoming El Pintor, as I am now. The painter, or La Gama, the line. And yeah, you just learn how to find your groove. And I remember like Buena Vista Social Club and reggae, which is just reggae in Espanol, and it was like a really popular kind of starting point for a lot of people in South America. That like they were connecting to a music that was popular, but it was but trying to make it their own. I also think that most people don't realize that like reggae is Jamaican. All these other countries, nations, islands have their own music. Like my father is from Trinidad and Tobago, and they have their own music. They have calypso and soca, and it's very different than what. Although I do really enjoy reggae, it's very different. And even in reggae's got so many different vibes and genres and all that stuff too. So, like my big artist I've been listening to as of late is Skip Marley. He's the grandson of Bob Marley and the son of Damian Marley. Who Damien, Ziggy, and Stefan are my generation of Marleys. Where Skip is one of the newer generations. There's a whole bunch of new Marleys out there. I forget what the one who's the son of Lauryn Hill and Stefan are what his name is, but he's got some good music too. And I love just kind of painting to them. I find them really, really great. And also, like I said, I'm going to document these later, and if you would like to see close-ups of them, you should follow my Patreon, where, like I said, I do a thing called 24 Shots every week, and it's literally like documenting all the little details and the workings and the makings of how these come about, and I welcome you to join me. I think it would be really fun for all of us. So, There's a few of you now. I appreciate you. But, more the merrier as it goes. And I have even a couple people who are, I have a couple free options, subscriptions. So there's a few people who do that also. And they're lurkers. No. They take advantage of the free stuff, which is fine. I like that. I'd rather you follow me on my choice of creative places rather than like having to do Instagram, having to do Facebook, having to do some of these things are on there too, but I like the idea of like I have a website. If you would like to see my work, go to my website. People are like, you don't post on Instagram that much. And I was like, no, I don't. I don't need to. I'm here to make my own art for me. I would love if more people followed that, but I think there's a fear of like branching out and purposely looking for people to bring art forward to people, creative ideas to people. I think a lot of them are quite terrified of the responsibility of going back to watching TV at certain times, and it's that whole thing where I remember like growing up, you had to basically give up your time on a Friday to watch TV. There was no like you'd give VCR, but there was no way of people like getting into something and watching something without having to give up a certain amount of time in your day. And I think we miss that in a way. I think we love the flexibility and the freedoms of being able to like walk around and do whatever and not have to worry about having to do anything at a certain time. I'm talking really fast. But we're not really imprisoned by that anymore. But I think in some ways we miss it because we got it when we wanted it. So we have like things that we can pull up on our phones and whatnot to really kind of connect ourselves to things. But to see something when it comes out, when it's going to come out, a premiere, it's just different. It's kind of beautiful. Yeah, that little guy right there. I don't know what each one of these are. Like at one point in time, I thought it was like a paramecium type of thing, where you're like looking through a microscope and you're seeing all the shapes, the living organisms, anonymity of sorts. But in actuality, who's to say? I don't know. And I think that's probably the funnier part. That people are like, so what does it mean? And I'm like, I don't know. It meant that I had 5 minutes to work on whatever I was working on. And then I felt connected to what I was making. And then made more of it. Because it resonated with me. If you're drawing also right now and you'd like to share with me, you're welcome to. You can send it to painterfilespodcast@gmail.com, and I'll see all of them. And I always like when you guys share stuff with me. I think it's fun. It's fun to see like the artwork that everybody does it on. You can also direct message me on I Heart Painting, I Heart Painting on at Tumblr. I've got one of those. Very fun. I oftentimes kind of reblog a lot of like paintings that inspire me, but I also put my own work on there. I also have a secret Tumblr that if you follow my my Patreon, you get access to that one also. And that is a plethora of kind of art and 24/7 shots and just everything. There's a lot of stuff, and I like how it works. I am super distracted as this is going on by the weirdness of whatever the hell is going on with the office right now. There's so many like weird quotes from The Office that you forget about, and then you hear them and you go, "What in the world is wrong with you people? Freaks, you utter weirdos." But they were who they were. I think Michael was probably my least favorite character of the show because he's such a jerk. But he feels very necessary at the same time. And I love Steve Carell. Steve Carell is probably one of my favorite actors of this last generation. But there is a certain aspect of it that I am less fond of about who he plays and things. I tell people sometimes, I challenge you to make something ugly. And people are funny because they're like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "I challenge you to make something that you find ugly, that like you don't like, not something lazy, because I think lazy and ugly are different. Something that you don't think is pretty, and like put like a lot of work into it, and then come back to it and see how you feel about it later." And I think you'll be surprised how much effort you put into making something that is somehow just different and like powerful at the same time. I'm glad we have this channel, by the way. I used to try and do these live, all types of places, and it was so freaking difficult sometimes. There you go. Last one. This one, I'd lie and say, "Oh, this one's gonna be super special," but I don't want to put that pressure on anything. It's just not necessary. We do as we do. We are as we are. We make as we make. And anything else is simply how we feel. You know? And I think it's important to like know the difference of you drive yourself crazy. Problem with doing this also is I bleed these things completely dry with the big strokes. That's why I always have a spare on me. So when this starts to kind of fade a little bit, I can move on to the next one without having to worry about trying to find replacement ones while I'm in the middle of doing something. I always think like it's important to kind of give yourself backups. It'll really kind of get you where you need to go. It allows you to stay in the directions that you're working on. Because I remember like being a young artist and being terrified. I'd buy like a bunch of blank canvases, and then as I started to run out of canvases, this anxiety would hit me, and then I wasn't able to finish or start other paintings until I got more supplies. Yeah, this thing's almost dead. So, I'll put this over here. Pull this one. And the good thing is they're the same size, they're the same one, so it works really well. And they come with like little inserts. You can find them online. And I really like how that goes with most of these because they're just connected. I'm sure like part of this will probably be thrown out because there's music in the background or whatever, but whatever. We don't do it for them, we do it for us. It's not one of those channels where you get to, it's not monetized anyway, so it doesn't matter. But it would be nice to be monetized. Like if you guys want to get me to 1,000 real quick so I can start monetizing these, that would be amazing. Or several thousand even would be even better. 10 to 20, maybe 100, maybe a million. I don't know. Just throwing that out there. A friend of mine told me that I need to lean more into my Afrofuturist kind of look or whatever to get more eyes on me, which I'm not really sure what that looks like as far as the image of me anyways. Like, I don't want to come off like Sun Ra or anything like that, but it's just I don't know, it's interesting to have that as a possibility. I think I'm more of a cozy person than I am a futurist person. Like I want to see black people and brown people and all that stuff in the future. I imagine it, I visualize it, I see it. I don't dream of labor or all these things, but I also don't know what future me looks like. I always kind of imagined I would have like a huge back tattoo at this point in my life. But I don't think they mean individual futures when they say futurism, you know? But maybe they do. Maybe I missed out on the memo of it. Maybe it's not about everybody else. Maybe it's really just about where you see yourself with tech and future, space travel, and all these things. This one looks alive. It's crazy. I like that about it. That's all of them. That's a whole page. Simple and clean. Beautiful. So I'm gonna let this dry, and then I might go back over it with some colors to kind of outline and kind of grab things that are happening. I think I might do something actually. So I use Poscas, big, fat paint Poscas, and then I just make these lines, and I go around them, and I mix them, and they smell like paint, because they are, and it's just a part of everything and everything. And yeah, I get paint all over myself. That's what happens. It's partially why I have this, so that I can just kind of, if I get paint on me, I wipe it off on my jumpsuit, and I keep going. It's like I said, you can't get stuck on the tiny details because there's so much bigger and better stuff to be working on than worrying about a little bit of spilled paint. And I just like the colors. Like I just like adding and making things a little more interesting to me. And so I do. And sometimes you gotta clean these off though. Sometimes you definitely can ruin them by mixing them. But I think in a lot of ways, it's all kind of part. Pull this over. I think in a lot of ways, it's just kind of part of being creative and making things. I thought I had more of these. Apparently, I do not. I gotta go into my bag and pull out the rest of them. Because I refuse to not be allowed to be in my own craziness, to not use all the colors that I want to use. Blue. That's what I need. My blue. And so I'm just kind of going. I'm making these weird, like little fun, nostalgic feels for all of it. Because when I was a kid, I loved like making things only in black and white. I got older, and color kind of consumed my work. So now, when I make art, we talked about this on one of them. I need to call my art what it is, art. When I make art, I like to feel complete with it. I like to feel connected with it. And so, that's what I do. Connect myself to it. And then, yeah, just, you make stuff as you go. And then strive for a sec, and I'll show you the final piece. And then I'll leave you to the rest of your weekend. I hope everything's treating you well. I hope you stay the beautiful people that you are. And I hope this finds you well. So, without further ado, let's turn on the light. My finished piece. There is no up, there is no down, there's no left, there is no right. Just art. I challenge you to make something cool and send it to me. Painter out. Ciao. Bye. Thanks for joining me.